Oh, hey there. Welcome to Cardboard Brewing Company. You're looking for something really different that nobody's seen before, huh? Well, you're in the right place because I've got a whole lineup of unique Commander brews. Check them out. I had this deck for just a little bit of time, and I've been playing around with who the Commander's going to be for it. It originally started as a Sidri Galvanic Genius deck, which is Esper, white, blue, black, and it lets you pay an activated ability. Two of them. There's one that costs 1 blue, and it makes a non-creature artifact become an artifact creature with power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost until end of turn. So you get to make your artifacts into creatures, which you can use to attack and block with, whatever you'd like. And then the other activated ability is you can pay white and black, and target artifact creature gains Death Touch and Lifelink until the turn. And these two abilities together make for some really awesome attackers or blockers that are artifacts, because you can pay blue, white, and black to make an artifact into a creature and give it Death Touch and Lifelink. It makes for a really menacing wall of a board that people don't want to attack into. And or if you get some really big artifacts, you start swinging with them, it ends up being awesome. And most people will build this deck in a way that makes really big cost artifacts cheaper to play by like bringing them back in from the graveyard or having super mana ramp. And then you turn all your ramp into attackers with the ability from Sidri. And you just do like a whole mechanized production kind of kill, right? Where you go in and just swing with all of your artifacts. But I want to do something really different with Sidri and make use of some really underused cards in Commander. Specifically, this card, the Pendant of Prosperity. The Pendant of Prosperity card came out in a Commander deck a long time ago. And it's really, really good, but it has a really, really big drawback on it. Let me read it for you here. It's a 3-mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you put it under control of an opponent of your choice. So you don't even have control of it anymore. But if you're playing something like Zedru, that might make sense to give control of the artifact to somebody else. But for most decks, you kind of want that card for yourself. You don't want it for your opponent. But let's see what else it does. If you pay 2 mana and tap it, and by you, I mean the opponent you gave it to, because it's not under your control anymore, they get to draw a card, and then they can put a land from their hand onto the battlefield. And the Pendant of Prosperity's owner gets to do the same. So it's really cool if you've got a buddy in your play group that you want to play with. You can give it to your buddy, and they can pay 2 and draw a card, play a land, and then you get to draw a card and play a land. And that's the worst the card is, and it's not great when it's like that. You don't really want to give your opponents land drops and cards for cheap, even though they're giving you one as well. But I wanted to use this card because I think it's so good. If you get control of this card, when you pay 2, you get to draw a card and put a land on the battlefield, and then you get to draw a card and put a land on the battlefield again. So if you give the Pendant of Prosperity to somebody else and then somehow gain control of it again, and then you pay the 2, you get to do the effect twice, and that's super powerful. 2 mana for 2 land drops and 2 card draw is so good. It's insanely powerful. So I wanted to make a deck that could make use of getting this card back under my control, and that's where Sidri came from. In this unique deck idea, we're going to be using Pendant of Prosperity and other cards like it. There's a bunch here on screen for you that give themselves away to another opponent, but they give a big effect when you use the activated ability on them. And we're going to make this deck to use Sidri's ability to turn those artifacts into creatures, and then use one of the craziest land abilities that exists in the game, Homeward Path. Homeward Path lets you tap the land, and each player gains control of all creatures he or she owns. Meaning, cards like Pendant of Prosperity and the other artifacts that give themselves away, if we turn them into a creature and then tap Homeward Path, we get that card back permanently because it's a creature till end of turn. And so I've got a whole deck list of like 20 cards that give themselves away to other players, and those players can get a benefit from it until I get Homeward Path. And so if I can get Homeward Path into play, now I can turn all of these artifacts into creatures, put them back into play under my control, and then I have really powerful artifacts, which is pretty sweet. Now, some of those artifacts are going to give themselves away again, which just means we're going to have to put a mana into Sidri to turn that artifact back to creature again and tap Homeward Path again. It's really, really fun. And it also has the side benefit of, until you get Homeward Path, you can start giving cards away to your opponents and make political friends in the game, right? You're benefiting both you, yourself, and the player that you gave the card to. And then eventually, once you get Homeward Path, you just take all of them back and you go crazy. Now, the deck also needs some cards then to find Homeward Path. You've got things like Expedition Map in the deck that are going to help you search out Homeward Path and put it into play, stuff like that. But overall, the deck then becomes kind of a control deck in a sense with really high value artifacts. So the shell is these artifacts that you're going to tap for big value. You're going to protect them all with counter spells and things like that, or some graveyard recursion. and then you'll win the game off of getting some crazy big creature out. Maybe you play an Ulamog or something like that. Totally your call on how you finish the game, but the fun part is making use of these cards that nobody ever plays because it benefits opponents. It's a fun way to use some underplayed, like very criminally underplayed cards. They're criminally underplayed cards that obviously are underplayed because they give effects to your opponents that are pretty good. But if you never let your opponents use those effects, it's very strong for you. So hope you enjoy that one. All right, on to a deck that I've had for years. I love this deck. It's super unique and really fun, and I loved it so much because of how unique it is. I've literally kept it a deck for, it's probably been 10 years at this point as of recording. I love this deck so much. It's a 4-color partner commander deck that utilizes Brews, Tarl, and Thrasios in order to pull off some really interesting ramp effects. Now, before you click away, because I said Thrasios is not like competitive Magic in this deck. Thrasios is here literally because we're going to have so many lands in play that we're going to play some more lands with Thrasios, and we're going to kill somebody with Thrasios. That's the funny part. We're not doing competitive Magic with this deck at all. The deck actually is played around a card called Sphinxbone Wand. Sphinxbone Wand is a 7-mana artifact. It's really expensive, but it has such a powerful ability. It says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may put a charge counter on Sphinxbone Wand. If you do, Sphinxbone Wand deals damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target creature or player. So let's do a little bit of math here real fast, right? You play your 7-mana Sphinxbone Wand. It has no counters on it. It does nothing. It just sits there. That's very bad. That's really, really bad because someone's just going to blow it up potentially. So you have to play this thing into protection, and you have to have a lot of mana because you need 7 to cast this thing plus have something up to protect the thing. One thing that could protect it, by the way, is if you look at my other video, the Cliffside Rescuer would be a really good card to have out before you play this card. But you can check out the details about that card in my other video. Link in the description. But once we cast one spell with Sphinxbone Wand, we get to put a charge counter on the wand and then do 1 damage to target creature or player. Not that great. We kill a Birds of Paradise maybe. That's fine. But you can see how this can get crazy because our second spell, now we put another charge counter on the wand. We get to do 2 damage to target creature or player. Then you put another instant or sorcery in there. You get 3 damage. And so it just keeps building faster and faster and faster. So I want to be able to build a deck that would be able to use Sphinxbone Wand in an interesting way because the easy thing is to do a bunch of like cantrips. And you just kill people with cantrips. Draw a card, play low mana cost spells. You're good to go. But I thought it'd be really funny to utilize a bunch of ramp spells to kill somebody. And so this deck is utilizing pretty much every ramp spell that I own. And there's a couple that I don't have yet that ought to go in the deck. That search my library for a land, put on the battlefield tapped, and then when Sphinxbone Wand is out, it's going to do damage to that player. And the setup for the deck works so well because at the early game, your deck's loaded in ramp spells so that you can get to 7 mana fairly quickly, right? On turn 2, I'm rampant growthing. On turn 3, I'm cultivating. Turn 4, I'm continuing the ramp train. We're playing out a creature every now and then. And the rest of the deck is just trying to keep my lands in play as well as the 1 or 2 creatures I play to keep myself safe. And then eventually we get to a turn where we play Sphinxbone Wand with some protection. And then the following turn, we play a card like Mizzix's Mastery, which lets us recast all of our instants and sorceries in our graveyard for free, which then triggers Sphinxbone Wand for every one of those spells cast. And that just kills a player or multiple players once you get to do that. You can also play cards like Epic Experiment, works really well with this too. And if the Sphinxbone Wand gets destroyed and you have no way to get it back, or it gets exiled, it's gone forever, there's backup plans, right? Because the secondary shell of this deck is let's turn all of the lands that we played all game into creatures and attack somebody with them. So that's another way to win the game. That's not very normal. You don't see a lot of players who take each other out with each other's lands. That's kind of a rare thing. So that makes it really special for this deck as well. I think it's hilarious to mobilize your lands and hit somebody with them. It's pretty funny. And if that doesn't work, there's still another backup plan. Kessig Wolf Run, which on its own is going to make our commanders big because we put all of our mana and give one of our creatures trample plus X plus O, whatever X is what we pay for from our lands. And so now your Brews Tarl and your Thrasios, Brews Tarl is going to give Thrasios double strike, and then you just make Thrasios an 11/11. It's not that hard, really, with how much mana we're making this game. It's not that hard. And if that doesn't work either, there's another card in the deck called Rubble Hulk. That's really good. Rubble Hulk says its power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control, but it has an ability called Blood Rush. You play 3 mana, discard Rubble Hulk from your hand, and target attacking creature gets plus X on the turn, where X is the number of lands you control, which is exactly like doing the Kessig Wolf Run thing, except it's a 3 mana instant from your hand and you just put it on Thrasios and double strike it with Bruce Tarl. It's so funny. It's so funny. It's such a fun deck. I think Bruce Tarl needs to be played some more. I haven't seen a lot of Bruce Tarl decks out there. Bruce Tarl's a really good card. He's very powerful. When he enters or attacks, you get to give a creature double strike and lifelink. That's huge. Thrasios is obviously a super overplayed card. And so you've seen it everywhere. If you don't want to go down the Bruce Tarl and the Thrasios line, which is literally in here only for the double strike and the lifelink. So you could put Bruce Tarl in the 99 if you wanted to. I just wanted to have him in the command zone so I could double strike Thrasios and kill somebody with a 1-power creature, because that's hilarious. But the other way you go is the 4-color commander, Kaineos and Tiro of Melitus. It's a 4-mana 2/8. At the beginning of your end step, you draw a card. Each player may put a land card from his or her hand on the battlefield, and then each opponent who didn't gets to draw a card. This is the card that I started the deck with, and hitting somebody with a 2/8, but then giving it double strike and making it huge with Rebel Hulk is still just as funny. It really is. It's just Bruce Tarl in the command zone makes the deck more powerful, more consistent. But if you don't want to play Thrasios, or getting Thrasios is really difficult to get because that card is like insanely hard to find now, you could find something else in the partner lineup that gives you 4 colors. It really doesn't matter because the ramp shell is what makes it good. The commanders aren't integral to the deck performing. And that's also another reason why I love this deck, is because you don't need to have your commander on the battlefield to make it work. You're just playing ramp spells, and ramp spells are a dime a dozen. There's so many of them, and you just play a ton of them, and then you Mythic's Mastery after it spins 1/1s on the battlefield. It's awesome. Give it a shot. Hope you enjoy. It's super, super fun. All right, let's look at Tolsmir, Friend of Wolves. This is a deck I've been trying to get working for a long time, and I eventually gave it a shot to get away from Wolf Tribal and go into this idea for the deck. So Tolsmir, Friend of Wolves is a 5-mana 3/3, which is very poor stats. Very poor stats. But when Tolsmir enters the battlefield, you get to make Voya Friend of Elves. It's a legendary 3/3 green and white wolf creature token. So really, you're paying 5 mana for 2 3/3s, which is pretty decent. And it doesn't end there. Whenever a wolf enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 3 life, and that creature fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. Meaning, when Tolsmir enters the battlefield, you can have Voya fight immediately, and you get 3 life, which is really good value, actually. It's really awesome. A 3/3 wolf isn't that powerful, so you're not going to take out any super big threats at the board. But at the very least, if you fight another 3/3, it's good removal. And anything less than that, then Voya just gets to take out a creature, and you gain 3 life, and now you have another 3/3 blocker. And normally people play this deck as a wolf tribal deck, which I have done, and I've had a really hard time closing out games because wolves aren't that big of a deal. There aren't very many huge wolves out there until you get into like the changeling cards. So the question became, how do I finish this game? Like, am I just playing wolves and hoping that they survive from a fight? And if they don't, why am I even playing Tolsmir anyways? Because that's the whole point of playing Tolsmir, is to have your creatures fight other creatures. And so it turned into a Tolsmir Blink deck, which has been way more fun. It's been so good. With Tolsmir out, when you play him, you get that 3/3, and that 3/3 gets to fight. And you fight something small. You could use the 3/3 as a blocker. You can use Tolsmir as a blocker, and then you can just blink Tolsmir. So before damage is dealt on the block, you use a card like Ephemerate, which is going to let you exile target creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its own control, and then you can do it again the next turn, right? And so it lets you then get a free block so that your creatures don't die on 2 creatures, because you can block with Tolsmir and Voya, and then Ephemerate in response, blink Tolsmir, and then another Voya enters the battlefield. You just pick the new Voya to be the one that survives, and the other one dies, but your block is still secure, and you get another fight spell, and you get another 3 life, which is pretty great. That's really, really good value on the block. The whole shell of the deck is a bunch of blink cards like Ephemerate, and there's a whole bunch of them in white. There's so many. So it plays pretty much all of those cards, but we still need to close out the game. How are we going to win this thing if we're just blinking a 3/3 or 2 3/3s essentially? And the card that really ties it together, in my opinion, is Nightpack Ambusher. Nightpack Ambusher is a 4-mana 4/4 wolf, which is very, very important for this deck because you also get to fight something when it enters. It also has flash, so you can do this on other players' turns and eliminate their threats before it goes crazy. You don't have to wait till your turn to get it. It also buffs other wolves and werewolves you control by +1/+1. So now your Voya token that you're going to keep blinking with Tolsmir is a 4/4, and 4 power is a pretty big buff. There's a lot of creatures that have 4 toughness or less. You're pretty much taking out most things at 4 power. And so now Voya becomes a really big deal when it fights something. And Nightpack Ambusher has, at the beginning of your end step, if you didn't cast a spell this turn, you make a 2/2 green wolf creature token, which is actually a 3/3 because of Nightpack Ambusher's ability to give it +1/+1. So now you get another fight at the end of your turn. You don't have to cast these spells your turn because you're going to blink Tolsmere anyways. So you just attack with your wolves and Tolsmere wherever you get free attacks in. And then on other people's turns, you can blink your dudes and get your fights. But you're also making a Nightpack Ambusher on your turn, which is great. You just get a lot of fights, you know? And so the whole deck can kind of function around Tolsmere and Nightpack Ambusher and blink spells, and then you just close it out with either a bunch of wolf tokens, or you get those free attacks in, or you play some big dumb creature at the end of the game, obviously, that you can blink and protect. It's a really fun deck. It's really interesting. I also went down the life gain side of things as well, so there's a few key cards like Well of Lost Dreams that are really awesome in this deck, because you're gaining 3 life every time you blink Tolsmere, so then you could pay a few extra mana to draw some extra cards, which is always great. It's just such a fun build. And it lets you play around this blink theme that's very popular in white colors. Something different that your opponents will never see. And you still get to do the fight thing with Tolsmere a lot. And there's a benefit here that I didn't mention too. Having blink spells available means that Tolsmere stays really safe. So you don't have to keep recasting Tolsmere, right? Put 1 Conjurer's Closet on the board, leave it there, blink Tolsmere every one of your turns so you get 3 life and a fight spell. And then whenever somebody targets Tolsmere, you just blink it, and it removes all of the targeting. Or if you have some giant attack coming at you, throw a wolf in front of it, and then blink Tolsmere to get it back whenever you feel like it. It's a really flexible, safe build when you play a whole bunch of blink spells, and you're really only trying to blink like 1 creature. Okay, here's the deck that I'm actually in the process of finishing. I'm so excited to get it ready to go. I just need to get some more cards for it. It's playing around a card type that is never used in Commander because they aren't that good on their own. They really aren't. The card I'm thinking of is Oblivion Ring. It's been around in Magic for ages. It's a 3-mana enchantment. When it comes into play, you get to remove another non-land permanent from the game, which on its own is very powerful. But the problem is the second half of the text says when Oblivion Ring leaves play, you return the removed card to play under its owner's control, which means it's not permanent removal. You're going to remove something, and the player that you remove the thing from is just going to blow up your Oblivion Ring, and they get their thing back. And God forbid the thing that you removed also has an enter the battlefield effect on it, and they get more value off of it. It's very, very rough to play Oblivion Ring style effects. But there's so many in Magic. There's a ton of them. You could go through a list. Banishing Light is another card that does the same thing. There's Stasis Chamber, and I could keep going. There's handfuls of these type effects with just different costs or different names. And because of that and how not good they are, they're really cheap, like budget-wise. Like, you're going to find these things for like 10 cents. They're super, super cheap because no one plays them. And so that got my wheels turning on what is a card or deck I can make that would make these types of effects worth it. And here's the idea that I have. The easy one is you run the Commander Sithis Harvest Hand, which is not an unpopular commander. It's just an Enchantress card so that every time you play an O-Ring, you get to draw a card and gain a life, which is very good, right? At least you replace the O-Ring before it gets blown up with another card. And then the question becomes, how do you win the game after just drawing cards and gaining life? It's not that hard, really. Drawing cards is very powerful. But so this is a little bit overplayed for me. And so I wanted to go a little bit deeper. And so I thought, well, what if I go with the Nykthia? Then you get to add black to the color pie, which lets you do some recursion stuff along with white. Recursion is really good. If you could bring enchantments back from the graveyard to the battlefield like O-Ring and exile multiple things with them, that would be pretty great. And Nykthia gets some really good recursion of enchantments. Nykthia is a 5-mana 4/4 with Menace, which is a great stat line for attacking, by the way. Other enchantment creatures you control have Menace as well. And now that makes a really good attacking commander because your enchantments all have Menace as well. You can create a line of enchantment creatures and just smack people with them. And the last ability of Nykthia says that whenever a Nykthia enters the battlefield or attacks, you exile up to 1 target non-aura enchantment card from your graveyard, like Oblivion Ring. And then you create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 3/3 black zombie creature type in addition to its other types. So now it's an enchantment creature that also exiles something when it enters play. And when that zombie goes away, that the player's going to get their thing back, but you can at least be attacking with a 3/3 with Menace until it dies again. The downside here is that you have to exile the O-Ring out of your graveyard, and so it's gone forever. You're not recurring that ever again. You just get 2 uses out of it, and that's it. But even then, 2 uses is pretty good, especially if you get some damage in with the zombie before it's gone. But I thought, why don't we take this one step further and make it a little bit more interesting and run Yenna, Red Tooth Regent. Yenna is a 4-mana 4/4 that says pay 2, tap it, choose target enchantment you control that doesn't have the same name as another permanent you control. Meaning in Commander, that's any enchantment. Or the rest of the ability, you can't pick the same enchantment twice, because the rest of the ability says create a token that's a copy of that enchantment, except it isn't legendary. So I can't just keep picking O-Ring over and over and over again if I already have an O-Ring on the battlefield. But if I have multiple O-Ring effects, so I have one O-Ring on the battlefield, I have a Banishing Light on the battlefield, I have a Stasis Chamber on the battlefield, I could pay 2 and tap Yenna and create a copy of each of those, and now I've got 2 of each. I can't make another one of each of them, but I can play another O-Ring effect and then copy that one. Then the rest of the text doesn't matter too much of this deck, but it does matter a little bit. It says if the token is an aura, you untap Yenna, scry 2, and activate only as a sorcery. Which means we aren't going to be able to untap Yenna with our Oblivion Ring as a copy, because that's not an aura. But we can play other cards similar to Oblivion Ring, like Darksteel Mutation, which doesn't exile, but it does kind of remove a card for a long time. It's the same kind of effect. And then copying Darksteel Mutation with Yenna lets us then untap Yenna and eliminate a creature on the board with Darksteel Mutation, and then copy another card, which is kind of cool. So now we can kind of broaden the scope of our deck a little bit beyond just enchantments that do Oblivion Ring effects. We can also look for some auras that do something similar to kind of tap into both sides of Yenna and still keep the theme of the deck of these cards that aren't played that much, but maybe we can make some use out of it, because now we get 2 activations of it. And when the card dies, it doesn't get exiled out of our graveyard. We can then play some white recursion like Sun Titan, and Sun Titan is like a superstar in this deck, because we're getting all of our Oblivion Ring effects back on Sun Titan entering and on Sun Titan attacking, and so we can play around that card. And there's a lot of white cards now that exist in the game that let you recur cards that are 3 mana or less. That's a really common theme now in Magic, and so the deck shell becomes, let's just bring these O-Rings back and make it really annoying for players to remove the O-Rings and then get their thing back, and then we're just going to exile it again. The goal of the deck is to do something really different, and Oblivion Ring style effects are not common in Commander because of that. And so let's play around it and see what we can do with it. And the card that really ties this whole idea together, because I know it sounds not that great up until now, the card that you need to play in this deck is Containment Priest. Containment Priest is a 2-mana 2/2 with flash, and it says if a non-token creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, you exile it instead. And so now your Oblivion Ring effects actually exile the permanent forever. Right? You just wait until someone Bane of Progresses the board and blows up all of the enchantments, and you respond with Containment Priest, and all the things that are coming back from the Oblivion Rings just get exiled, which is super great. It's a really, really funny effect. You can even play your own Bane of Progress. So you could set up the board for this effect to happen, right? You could have Bane of Progress just sitting in your hand, and once you get to critical mass of Oblivion Rings on the battlefield, copied with Yenna, and then you're ready to just blow up the board and put all those Oblivion Rings into your graveyard, you play your own Bane of Progress, respond to the ability on it, and play Containment Priest, exile everything under all those Oblivion Rings, and then you use your Sun Titan and other recursion effects to redo all of it. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. It's dependent on Containment Priest to like secure the removal, but other than that, it does a really awesome thing that you're not just using Containment Priest on your opponents just because. You're setting up the Containment Priest to do something really epic. I think that's a really cool effect. I can't wait to put this deck completely together and try it out. I'll report on it once I get it fully ready together. But the idea fits. I think it works really well, and we'll see how it works when I actually get to play it. And for our last commander to go through is actually one of my favorite decks that I own right now. I play this deck almost every single week. I love it, and it's gone through so many iterations. It's finally landed on this one, and I'm pumped. I'm pumped to share it with you. The commander is Alesha Who Laughs at Fate, which is a 3-mana Rakdos commander. It's a 2/2 with first strike. Whenever Alesha attacks, you put a 1/1 counter on it. And that's pretty nice because with first strike, you're making your creature bigger. Alesha gets harder to block as you get more attacks in, and so it makes for a really great attacking creature, which is really important because the last ability is Raid, which says at the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, return target creature card with converted mana cost less than or equal to Alesha's power from your graveyard to the battlefield. So the bigger Alesha grows, the bigger CMC cards you get to return from your graveyard at the end of your turn, but you have to have attacked with the creature this turn. Now, thankfully, we're in Rakdos. Rakdos is a very attack-heavy color. There's some really aggressive creatures that are great for getting in, and we don't really care if the creatures die, because we're getting them back with Alesha anyways, once we get Alesha big enough. So one build we could do with Alesha is we go super big CMC cards, and throw them in the graveyard and then just make Alesha huge. And I think that's a really common way to play the deck, a big Reanimator style deck. But I really wanted to play the human tag on Alesha and do some crazy weird human typal deck. So I have a human typal Rakdos deck built around Alesha. And the reason why I went humans is because there are two cards that I really, really like that I wanted to make a deck around. The first one is Zathrid Necromancer. It's a 3-mana 2/2 human wizard that says whenever Zathrid Necromancer or another human you control dies, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. This card has been in my bin for years, waiting for a deck shell around it because the ability is so good. Being able to replace all your humans with 2/2s and then get your humans back down the road means you just have this army of things that are really sticky, that you get to recur creatures, and while you're trying to recur them, you've got blockers available or you've got attackers available to keep the aggression up. And so Zathrid Necromancer was a huge inspiration for making some kind of human tribal deck. And what would the colors be? And it started as a Jund deck, but eventually I trimmed out the green and got to just red-black because there's another card that I really like that works really well here called Shared Animosity. Shared Animosity is a 3-mana enchantment that says whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 till end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. Meaning if you have an army of humans on your board that are all attacking and they want to be attacking every turn, they get buffed by each other, right? You have to imagine a scenario where if you have 4 humans on the battlefield attacking, every one of those humans is getting +3/+0, which is huge. And if they die, your Zathrid Necromancer just replaces them with zombies, and those zombies still get buffed by Shared Animosity because they're all zombies. And now you just need some way to bring all those humans back to the battlefield, and that's where Alesha comes into play. Alesha is a really great reanimator, and you don't even have to attack with Alesha. You just have to have the power of Alesha big enough to recur the creatures that you want from your graveyard. So then the deck took a turn where I'm not going to play like 8-mana cards because I don't want to get Alesha's power to 8. That's going to take a really long time, and if somebody just kills Alesha, it's all over. Your deck just falters. So what if I played a bunch of low-cost humans around 3 mana or less in the deck? And that's the whole deck. 3 mana or less human tribal Alesha. And it surprisingly works so well. It's so good. Every set that comes out, I go looking for all the human cards because there's always new ones. The Final Fantasy sets came out recently as of recording. There are so many humans in that set, which makes this deck even more fun. I can't wait to pick up more. I got my hands on Kain, which is a really fun card in this deck, but I need to get my hands on a bunch more. They're just hard to find. But even Edge of Eternities just came out recently, and there's a really awesome uncommon card from that set that the whole world's blowing up about that's perfect in this deck. It's called Umbral Caller Zealot. It's a 2-mana 3/2. It's a human, and you can sacrifice another creature artifact to surveil 1. And so now I have a way to put humans into my graveyard so Alesha can bring them back in case there's any like funky shenanigans for removal, like exile effects, stuff like that. You could play Plague Crafter in the deck, which lets you sack itself plus everyone else's sack a creature, and then you can bring Plague Crafter back over and over again if you want to. There's just like these sneaky humans that are in the deck that fit really well. Like a really great human in the deck is Chainer, Nightmare Adept, which is in the 4-mana slot, so unfortunately it's a little harder to recur him. But Chainer lets you throw cards into your graveyard, like all of the humans that you play, and then Alesha just brings them back, which is awesome. It's so much fun. And so Alesha's going to bring back the card you discard. Chainer's going to let you cast a card from your graveyard by discarding that card that you can bring back to Alesha. So you're kind of getting a 2-for-1 recursion, which is kind of awesome. And yeah, like the deck works that way, but then it goes even one step further because we want cards in our graveyard so bad to trigger Alesha's ability. So we play cards like Thrill of Possibility and Cathartic Reunion and Faithless Looting and stuff like that so we could draw and discard. And the discard does not matter in this deck at all because we're just going to throw all of our creatures into the graveyard and let Alesha bring them back. And they're all super cheap. They're like 3 mana or less. Our board at the beginning of the game is a 1-drop creature, 2-drop creature, play Alesha on turn 3. We're hardly ramping in this deck, which I know feels really weird, right? Because every deck needs ramp. But this deck runs so well when you've got an early start on the board and you just start throwing creatures onto the battlefield. And you round everything out with cards like Inti, which gives you a discard outlet and grows your creatures like Alesha. You can just put the 1/1 counter Alesha. The trample is great, but if you don't want to attack, you at least get to grow Alesha to get more cards back. You also have cards like Judith, which gives you a ping whenever your creatures die. There's so many cool things in here, and they're all humans. It's awesome. I love this deck so much. It's such a great time. And it was a really fun puzzle to put together to find out how can I make human tribal work in colors that aren't really human colors. Normally, humans are in green and white. That's where the best humans are and the effects for humans are. But there's humans in every color in Magic. And so you can find cards that are never used for some kind of typal deck. And Alesha was a way for me to try out some humans that don't see a lot of play in those non-green and white decks. And you would be surprised at how many humans there are in Rakdos. Just take a look sometime and see what cards might fit in a deck like this. Well, have you had your fill? No? That's all right. I've got more brews for you to check out here on screen. Thanks for spending time here at the Cardboard Brewing Company. If you've got any super unique Commander brews of your own, be sure to share them in the comments because I'm really curious to see what all is out there.